Afternoon, everybody. It's great to be with you. I'm Todd Rokita, Indiana's Attorney General. And yes, I know how to drive a stick, I promise. That was a lot of fun earlier today at DriveCo. I did a truck simulator. That was stick shift. Loved it. This is an automatic, actually. It just is, it's not like your car automatic. It really hops around. So a big thank you to Danny, my instructor. He did a great job. We kept it straight, Danny, didn't we? I will tell you, first of all, that in, excuse me, we're going to do a couple things today. I will tell you that DriveCo, from everything I've seen so far today, from everything that my staff has looked at, DriveCo is doing it right. What do I mean by right? Well, there's a new law in Indiana. There's a new law for trucking schools, and there's a new law for trucking companies. And the law is this. First of all, if you're teaching truckers, they got to know English. I call this Terry's Law. It was House Bill 1200. Terry was a gentleman about 65 years old. He was driving his pickup truck safely and legally in Avon, Indiana, got hit and killed by an illegal alien truck driver. That has to stop. We've had other families killed by truck drivers who got their licenses from out of state. Ohio, Illinois, our good neighbors, so to speak, and killed Hoosiers. We're not going to tolerate it here in Indiana. It's not going to do it. So we've revoked our CDL licenses, about 1,800 of them or so, from drivers that, well, we were guilty of it too. The state of Indiana, the Department of Transportation, BMV, excuse me. But we got rid of those licenses. If you can't speak English, if you can't prove your legal status in the state of Indiana, your CDL is gone. You're also not going to learn at an Indiana trucking school, or that trucking school is going to get fined $50,000. And if you're a trucking company that knowingly and intentionally hires an illegal, hires someone who can't speak English, you're on the hook too for tens of thousands of dollars worth of fines. But I'm really, and so this is a new law. We're just starting it. So I came here to DriveCo to learn from a school that's doing it right. So I want to give thanks to Karen Oroz, campus president here at DriveCo, John Carrion, good friend of mine, general counsel and VP of government relations. DriveCo has an average of 400 students per year. They have a partnership with our state's community college called Ivy Tech. Out of all the students that take the program, 65% have a first-time pass rate, and the number jumps to around 92% on their second time, which is common in the industry. Common in the sense that there's second times. What's uncommon is that 92% pass rate, which is excellent. Both of these pass rates were way above average when we compared them to similar programs, not only in Indiana, but in other states. So today, again, I appreciate getting to tour this driving school and getting a better understanding. It will greatly help my office as we target bad actors and not the responsible schools. Before I get to the second piece of business, I wanted to ask if Karen wanted to come and say a few words, if John wanted to say a few words about the school, and take any questions from the media on this new law or your operations. Karen, thank you very much again. Appreciate it. You gotta be loud.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've been with DriveCo now for 12.5 years. We take pride in training our students to ensure that they're successful. Overall, we've been here been in Gary since June of 1990, I've been here for 36 years, serving the citizens of our communities to ensure that they get good paying jobs. So we're really excited about that, he made a visit here so that he could recognize what we do for our communities, because it's really important to us. My Director of Admissions, Gladys Espinosa, also does an extremely good job at vetting the students to ensure that they are have English proficiency, that they are U.S. citizens. So that way, we've been doing that all along. So it is a new law, but it's been a requirement for a very, very long time to be able to speak English. And so we take pride in that. We're very happy to be here. And I do want to say one thing. Even if someone is does not pass after the second attempt, we still help them. We want them to be successful, and that brings our completion or our certification rate all the way up to 98% overall. So my instructors, the coolest thing about my instructors are half of them are former students. So they come back and they want to give back to the community because they understand our culture. And I think that's really, really important. We take pride in having a very, very strong culture here of success.
Just.
Yeah. John Carrion.
Thank you, folks. Well, I've been a friend of General Rokita's for a long, long time now and really support him and his efforts to ensure that Indiana has safe drivers in the commercial driver's license space and ensuring that we have no illegal aliens that are in our programs and that could ever go to work for any of our employers. The one thing that Karen didn't mention that we're most proud of is for a $5,500 tuition, whether you're in a 4-week program for full-time days or a 10-week part-time program, they're coming out beginning salaries are anywhere from $50,000 to $90,000. So Indiana residents really get a great value in that and can work in a space where they can provide for their families much more quickly at much lower cost. So, we do support General Rokita always, but more importantly in the law that will be Terry's law and ensuring that we only provide safe drivers for Indiana's CDL providers. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Thank you. Any questions about the trucking school, and we could take them later too. The second order of business today, I want everyone to be aware that just a little while ago, we started our first enforcement action under Indiana's new Fairness Act. We have officially filed a lawsuit against the Town Council of Merrillville over its illegal interference with federal immigration enforcement. President Trump promised in 2024 that he would carry out the largest deportation initiative in U.S. history if elected president. He's doing just that, and Indiana is a great state partner in upholding the rule of law. To make good on that promise, to put citizens first, federal officials need adequate detention space to hold the thousands of illegal aliens ICE is apprehending as those aliens undergo removal proceedings. So reading directly from the complaint, and it's a long one. I won't read all of it. But here's our allegations, which we will prove in court. Starting in January 2026, shortly after public reports identified Merrillville as a potential site for the new DHS detention facility, members of the Merrillville Town Council and other town officials made clear in a series of public actions and statements that the town was adamantly opposed to and going to actively discourage any sale of property by a Merrillville property owner, anyone, to DHS. At a January 13th, 2026 public town council meeting, members of the public expressed general opposition to DHS and ICE and protested the idea of DHS and ICE having any kind of presence in Merrillville. One member of the public said to the council, quote, "I totally hope you guys oppose this ICE facility. You've heard nothing but bad things about them being ICE, dehumanizing people, whatnot. It would really, really bother me, the constituent, to have those guys here in Merrillville," unquote. Another person said she, quote, "totally opposes having anything like an ICE detention facility in such a wonderful community," unquote. In response, at the same meeting, Councilman Sean Pettit expressed his agreement with the objections raised by the members of the public and noted that his personal residence, is close to one of the properties reported as a possible site for a DHS facility. He stressed that he did not want a DHS facility anywhere near his house, saying, quote, "I'm not looking out my deck and looking at this facility. I can guarantee you that. There is no way," unquote. At the same council meeting, Merrillville Town Attorney Joe Svetvanoff stressed that the town would, quote, "exhaust all its options," unquote, to oppose the creation of a DHS immigration detention facility in Merrillville. Then, on January 27th, the Merrillville Town Council unanimously enacted, so still in the same month, Town Resolution 2602 here. That resolution states the Town Council's position that quote, "the town of Merrillville is not an appropriate municipality for the placement of a detainee processing facility." The resolution further states that Merrillville unequivocally opposes the conversion of existing industrial warehouses within the town. And it goes on. It suggests that the facility would be in disregard of the town's land use and regulatory ordinances and creates unanticipated burdens. But neither the resolution, nor any meeting since, nor any zoning board meeting or anything else has given any specificity to that allegation about resources or adequacy. It was a red herring. Although the resolution adverted to local zoning and use restrictions as possible basis for the council's opposition, the council did not limit its opposition to DHS using specific sites where the council supposedly had concerns about the environmental impact and instead expressed categorical opposition. Now, it's one thing if a site's picked and there's a zoning board meeting or there's some other kind of meeting and they're able to have an intelligent, specific discussion about why that site won't work. That's not what this resolution did. This resolution categorically said, not in Merrillville. And that's aiding and abetting illegal aliens, putting them above U.S. citizens. Similarly, the resolution does not acknowledge or discuss DHS's obligations under federal law to evaluate the environmental impact of the establishment of a new detention site. DHS has its own federal legal obligations to make sure the site meets sewer and water standards, meets other safety protections for the inmates alone, which would also mean that they're protecting the community. The resolution does not suggest either that the DHS had in any way failed to comply with its legal obligations. Following passage of the resolution, Town Council President Rick Bella issued a public statement on January 28th, reiterating and elaborating on the Town Council's opposition to the creation of a DHS detention space in Merrillville anywhere. President Bella emphasized that his resolution, quote, "sends a clear message that Merrillville is not an appropriate location for such a facility, and that any attempt to place one here without regard to local ordinances and community impact will be met with a firm opposition." Well, as DHS has shown and has shown across the country, they abide by local ordinances and they abide by community impact. And there was no hearing or anything else or no evidence at all to say otherwise. Bella further stated that the resolution was a proactive step, quote unquote, to oppose and prevent DHS facilities from being created in Merrillville. So at the same time, town officials were taking public action to discourage property owners from transacting with DHS and suggesting that such transactions may be inconsistent with local ordinances. They were also working privately, behind the scenes, to thwart any property sales between Merrillville property owners and all of them, and DHS and its realtors. On January 8th, 2026, approximately 2 weeks after press reports identified Merrillville as a possible location, Merrillville's Director of Economic Development and Redevelopment contacted OPUS, one of the property owners with whom DHS has been in contact about a possible transaction to request a meeting to discuss Opus's property located on 8719 Mississippi Street, one of the Merrillville properties that was of interest to DHS. Not long after that communication, Opus abruptly notified the real estate agent working on behalf of DHS that Opus was ceasing all negotiations over the sale of the property to DHS and terminating existing license agreements for the property. The notification was unexpected. Just 4 days prior, Opus had told the real estate agent it was working toward a quote-unquote speedy closing of the property. Thereafter, Merrillville officials continued privately to pressure Opus to commit that it would not engage in any real estate transactions with DHS. Specifically, on January 27th, the same day the town council enacted the resolution, Sean Pettit contacted Opus, that's the councilman, and told Opus there was a lot of concern in the community, right? The concern I already quoted from the council meeting. How DHS was not wanted here, not for any water use issue or environmental impact, because of who DHS was and what they did. So Pettit contacted Opus by email to tell Opus there was a lot of concern about a DHS facility in Merrillville, and to ask Opus a series of 4 questions to determine whether Opus was negotiating or would, 4 questions, like he's the lawyer. Not that it would even be proper for a lawyer to do it. So the next day, and remember, these are councilmen that have votes on zoning, on local ordinances, and can really stymie Opus's business. So the next day, in an email to the town council's attorney, Councilman Pettit said that he had spoken to Opus's attorney earlier that afternoon and had told her that the Ward 6 councilman, on behalf of the entire town council, Pettit now speaking on behalf of the entire town council, requests a formal written commitment from Opus on their letterhead to commit to no detention facility in town, particularly at 8719 Mississippi. Councilman Pettit copied all but one of the other Merrillville Town Council members and the town manager, as well as Brett Tomford, an Opus employee, on the correspondence. Acting on Councilman Pettit's direction, the town attorney sent a copy of the resolution to Opus by email on January 30th. In that email, the town attorney stated that the town, quote, requests correspondence from you, Opus Holding, representing the following. Our Merrillville Industrial Building is not under contract with anyone, including the Government Services Agency, Immigration, Customs and Enforcement, or Acquisition Management, or any other entity directly or indirectly associated with the federal government, and does not have a transaction pending at the Mississippi address. Property at the Mississippi address. The town attorney made clear in his message, especially for the leasing or selling or to house immigrant detention, processing, or equipment storage facility. The town attorney made clear in his message that he represents the town of Merrillville as its town attorney. The town attorney copied council members, Rick Bella and Sean Pettit, and Merrillville town manager Michael Griffin on this email. On February 4th, Opus responded. In its letter, Opus stated that Opus, its board, and its leadership team earnestly value the relationship our company has with the municipalities and communities it serves. Maintaining those deep connections and our reputation as a world-class responsible real estate developer is one of the highest priorities. We also understand the reason for your inquiry and the position of the town council. It went on to say there are circumstances in which obligations of confidentiality limit parties in their abilities to make public statements. While we very much like to be helpful in our response to your request, any disclosure will have to comply with legal obligations. They weren't even legally allowed to ask these questions. Nevertheless, we can confirm that we are not under contract or are we in active negotiations concerning the sale or lease of the Mississippi property. Since providing the town council with the commitment, the council demanded that it was not in negotiations to sell the Mississippi property to any federal agency, Opus has continued to own the property and has engaged in other correspondence with town officials about tax abatements, zoning variances, and other municipal regulatory issues that affect the property. Presumably, those conversations are going well. When you play ball, when you're intimidated by public officials, things get easier for you, apparently. As occurred with the Opus property, the efforts of DHS and its agents to acquire the property owned by Trade Lane, located at 7400 Mississippi Street, so this is a second property, to create new detention space were also impeded by the town council. On February 6, Trade Lane's chief executive officer emailed a real estate agent working on behalf of the DHS to inform them that Trade Lane could not proceed with the sale on Mississippi Street because of the town council's opposition. The Trade Lane executive referred to Resolution 2602 in his email and stated that the resolution has been distributed to owners, listing agents. He added that, quote, DHS would have to get past this resolution if we, the landowner, were to engage. In sum, because of the town council's concerted and coordinated efforts to frustrate any sale of property in the town of Merrillville for use as a DHS immigration detention facility, at least two transactions that may have facilitated DHS's efforts to expand detention space have fallen through. Merrillville's efforts to thwart the sale of property to DHS and its agents are of a piece with the other campaigns of pressure and intimidation against property owners mounted by activists and local government officials across the country, not just in Merrillville, to oppose DHS efforts to create new detention space. For example, following a December 2025 Washington Post report about DHS's efforts to acquire warehouses for detention space, local officials and protesters in, among other places, Salt Lake City, Kansas City, and other places successfully frustrated DHS's efforts using tactics similar to those employed by Merrillville officials. Similarly, the city of Gary waged a campaign to oppose the creation of a DHS detention facility in 2016, with the result that DHS did not go forward with that facility. Gary is not part of that. This lawsuit, as that happened before, Indiana's new Fairness Act. So those are the facts we allege. Those are the facts we will prove. In doing so, unfortunately, Merrillville will put its citizens on the hook for probably large legal bills. I'll leave that up to them. And in the end, having to rescind this resolution. I did try to work with Merrillville. I sent them a professional letter. It did not have all the evidence that we have in this complaint. Didn't need it. It was a clear violation of Indiana law. It still is. I asked them within a certain time period to rescind the resolution. They initially, at least through public reporting, said they were. But then they got in front probably of those same activist citizens, a small minority, at the next town council meeting, and didn't follow through on the course that they described that they were going to do in public media reports. So I was hopeful for a positive resolution where local officials, elected officials, would follow Indiana law. And I was hopeful that today might be a press conference with them, talking about putting Hoosiers first, U.S. citizens first, above housing and aiding and abetting criminal illegal aliens. But such is not the case. The time period came and went, and now the town of Merrillville has a serious lawsuit on their hands. And stay tuned for its resolution.
Attorney General, I know you had asked them to rescind their resolution. If it was just the resolution, would that have led to a lawsuit under the Fairness Act, or is it these emails which seem to suggest that they were basically telling private property owners, don't sell, don't lease your property?
Yeah, it's the veiled threat of an elected official who's got to vote to determine the value of that property in the future, you know. we have a strong case with these emails. We have a strong case with the resolution. We had a strong case with the resolution. It's a lot stronger now with these emails. And by the way, we didn't allege all our evidence in the complaint. So there's more to come.
Talking about CDLs, can you explain what the process looks like to determine who has an illegal CDL or is improperly qualified to have one in terms of, from the state perspective, how you actually root that out?
Yeah, sorry about that. It's so warm out here, the tape's falling apart. That's really a question for the governor and the BMV. It's his agency. But as far as what the law says, a company can't knowingly hire someone if they know that person's an illegal alien with a bad CDL. They could use E-Verify. That's a pretty good safe harbor when they're doing their employing. They don't have to. They can rely on birth certificates, green card status, other federal documents, things like that. Was yours to the school or the trucking companies? I'm sorry. Was your question about the school or trucking companies?
It just meant that there's tens of thousands of drivers on the road in Hoosier State right now too, and maybe it is a better question for law enforcement, but I'm just curious what the process is for actually tackling an issue like this.
Oh, well, yeah, you don't want to wait to the accident, right? There is a lot that we can do, and I think the BMV might even acknowledge that, they got to dust off some of their technology and use the best that's out there, but you can cross-reference these government databases now and do more cooperation with the federal government partners and those databases. E-Verify, when it started out, wasn't great. There were a lot of problems. Yeah. I'm going to hold it. I'll just try to hold it.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I had the big idea of doing this outside today, thinking you guys wouldn't stay long. E-Verify has gotten a lot better. And now with the federal government focus and interest in the same mission of not having illegal aliens driving and not in the country at all, I think the technology is there to help us ahead of time. Yeah, you might want to ask law enforcement how they intend. This was a bill, 1200, that Terry's Law, that came on the heels of Terry's death, and it was more than midway through the session. And so we jumped in right away to help write it. So we have, although I'm not a lawmaker, we advise lawmakers on what should be said, so I certainly have a hand in it. Might there be specific revisions in the future? Sure, as we learn how to put it in practice. But I did at least have the frame of mind and took the time to talk to some different law enforcement agencies about how they would enforce it. And they're very much behind. They actually say, well, we'll figure it out. The databases now come right into the squad car, and they can check these things almost in real time, really.
And you mentioned that Indiana is guilty too. What have you found just in the course of your research and understanding this problem that you realize that the state is capable as well?
It's my client, but the fact that we got rid of 1,800 CDLs, that was my point. Not that we're criminally liable for anything like that, but the point being, we stood up. We found out that, hey, we have some people that shouldn't have CDLs as well, and we got rid of them. And that's the difference between Indiana, that won't tolerate such things, and states that are ignoring the federal requirements and can be bolstering their own state requirements.
What would you say to people who say either the Fairness Act itself or your enforcement action right now is just meant to intimidate people who are opposed to the president's immigration policies?
They could be opposed to everything you want. This is nothing about free speech. It was really amazing that the town council's initial reaction, our resolution doesn't have any force of law. We're just exercising our right to free speech. Well, if that's the case, then so am I, to answer your question, right? But I do have the enforcement authority to go after town officials who do not follow Indiana law in this particular regard. And that is happening here. But they can listen to their constituents. They could have done the responsible thing and say, hey, listen, DHS has a federal job to do. These are federal partners. They could have listened to their constituents and also did a little bit of education and said, you know what? DHS has its own federal regulations to make sure there's enough water, to make sure there's enough sewer, for the protection of their own inmates. and indirectly then the community. And then, like I'm saying here, the town council could have put forth all kinds of specific reasons about a specific property, why it wouldn't environmentally work. They did none of that. They use it as a beard to hide the fact that they really feel the way that a small minority of their tax-paying voters and citizens do. And it's not going to stop the state, the federal government, and I believe, without any polling data, the vast majority of Merrillville citizens.
What was the time frame that you got rid of 1,800 CDLs? What was the time frame, and how many other people could still be holding a CDL in the state of Indiana who are not proficient in English?
Well, to be clear with you, we probably, and again, the BMV does not answer to me, it answers to the governor, but we requested them immediately on the heels of these accidents to start cleaning up their database and make sure. And after understanding the situation, let me put it that way, they complied and they got it done. And certainly by the time the law or the bill came to law, which would have been about end of April, end of March, maybe mid-April, we were already compliant.
So are you worried about any kind of legal action if people are wiped off the system, if, let's just say, they don't have any violations, don't have any infractions?
Yeah, so far that's a fair question. Good question. We haven't, I don't know of any mistakes. Again, not my agency. The state has, like all states and a lot of government, has some pretty good immunity for those kinds of things when mistakes happen. I think it's a matter of how quickly we correct a mistake, so that people's livelihoods aren't endangered.
Because with the accidents that you mentioned, fatal crashes, the people who were allegedly responsible for those crashes were in the country illegally. Were they living in the state of Indiana, or do they have a driver's license somewhere else?
What was the first part of that again? For the 1800 or for the other ones?
We're talking about why this law came on the books, because lawmakers mentioned the crashes of people.
Yeah, it was an example of each. There was I believe an Amish family of 5 in northeastern Indiana. Yeah, that were killed by a truck driver holding a Pennsylvania CDL, and then Terry was killed by, I believe it was an truck driver having an illegal alien truck driver having an Indiana CDL. Next question. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate your interest.